Care to chat? Hello and welcome to a brand new series of the Northern Ireland Social Care Council's popular podcast, Care to Chat. I'm Wendy Austin and it's my great pleasure to host these podcasts. It's a real privilege to hear the stories of social care practitioners and social workers and their clients, and hear too about the many different and important aspects of the work itself. There's a huge range of situations in which they come into play, from domiciliary care to complex areas like criminal justice, from early years to end of life. This first episode we're calling Precious Memories, as we find out about the voice of social work in memory and dementia services. With me today are Jenny Magee, Amy Morgan, Lisa Marley and Roisin Donnelly. They each have experience of dealing with people with memory loss, but from different perspectives. So maybe you'd all like to introduce yourselves and tell us why you're here to talk about dementia and memory care. Jenny, would you like to start?
Yeah, so I'm lead social worker for memory services and psychiatry of old age in the Southern Trust, and I suppose this was an idea of mine some time ago. With the prevalence of dementia care, I think it's time we fly the flag and raise an awareness, especially about dementia, the impact on families and the role of social workers in dementia services.
And Lisa, tell us about your role. You're the memory clinic manager. Tell us about that.
Yes, I work in the memory clinic in the Southern Trust, and the memory clinic would be the first point of contact that we have with that person and their families on their journey. So
does every person who has a diagnosis of dementia then end up having some kind of contact with social work?
Yes, virtually. Well, I would say 99.9% of people, yes, they do. This is why we're here today, to raise awareness of that and to fly the flag, I suppose, for social work, which there are quite often negative connotations to social workers. So it's really important that we let people know that we're out there and we're willing to help and support you.
Amy, what about you? Tell us your story.
Yeah, I have been in the memory team in the community services now for just over 10 years, working with dementia and memory care, and we would get referrals for people coming into our service for assessment of need, and people do at that stage. So they've been to Lisa's part where they have had assessment, they've been to the consultant and they have a diagnosis of memory problems and dementia. So they would come into our service then to look for an assessment of need, and that's where we would make an assessment to see what services and supports we could offer people, and also work with their families in completing a carers assessment to support the care and looking after their person with dementia.
Now, in the studio with us as well, Lisa, Amy and Jenny are on one side of the table, and on the other side is Roisin. You're not going to get a grilling, don't worry about it. But it just kind of maybe happenstance that's the case, because you're the person that's on the receiving end, you and your mum, of the work that the other three do. So tell us about your situation.
So my mum has dementia. She has mixed dementia, so she has had vascular dementia diagnosed for 14 years, and then she has 4 years diagnosis of the Alzheimer's. So that's why it's classed as mixed dementia. My mum lives with us, with my husband and my 2 children, and I'm her full-time carer. I'm her only member of family because I'm an only child, and it's just really me and mummy. And then I get support from the memory team and from the family in the house.
So how does that support work?
Well, Amy is actually our social worker, and she was able to arrange for my mum to go to respite on a daily basis. It's like a wee centre she goes to out in Bessbrook, and she had initially been 1 day, then it was able to be increased to 3 days, and now she's 5 days a week. So she goes out to day collect her in the mornings and bring her home, and it gives her the actual routine, and then it makes it, my husband and I would both still work from home. And it sort of takes the pressure off us to keep checking on my mum, even when carers are coming in and out, just to make sure that she's still warm, she's still fed right, because there's an awful habit of asking a person with dementia, do they need it to eat anything or drink anything, and they go, no, they're fine. But they actually do it, whereas we're now got her out at Barton College 5 days a week and we don't have to worry about it.
That must have been a big relief.
Absolutely. It takes so much pressure off. We literally are just making sure she's ready in the mornings for her lift, as we call it. She's away all day and then she comes home in the afternoons, late afternoons. And, you know, somebody in the house will help her get her back into the house and get her into her room. And it also means that she's had a dinner, a proper dinner at lunchtime. So in the evenings, we can then actually make our own dinner what we want, and we don't have to really facilitate Granny anymore. And we just make her a sandwich or something light because she's had her proper meal at lunchtime.
So that's all been organised with the assistance of Amy. Yes. I mean, Lisa, really, what you were saying that you're the first port of call. I think, isn't that right? The first point of contact. So if someone's listening to this and has a concern about themselves or about a loved one, what should they do?
Becoming forgetful doesn't necessarily mean that you have dementia. There could be other reasons to why you're experiencing memory loss or symptoms of memory loss. So it can be caused by physical health problems, mental health problems. So the first point of call would be to go to your GP and discuss your concerns with your GP and talk about your symptoms, how it's impacting on your daily life. The person knows himself that something isn't right. You always have that gut feeling or that intuition and listen to yourself. Go to the GP and have that conversation with them. The GP will then possibly do blood tests. They will do a memory test and they will then decide from those tests whether or not they will refer on to the specialist memory clinic, and that's where you will be further assessed then. You know, the blood test and that can be taken to rule out other causes of your memory loss. For example, some people can be very unwell at the time, physically unwell, and that can be impacting on their memory. They may have thyroid problems, vitamin deficiencies, and that will come through in their blood. So that's why, you know, to take a full blood screening is very important. They could be experiencing symptoms of menopause, depression, anxiety, other stressors in their life that, you know, that are causing that lack of concentration and lack of attention. And I suppose it's about having that conversation with your GP to rule all of those other symptoms out and to ensure that you have all of those avenues covered, I suppose. So the first thing you do then when you go to the GP is tell them all of those concerns and they will assess all of that and then refer on to the memory clinic if they feel that's appropriate.
There's a bit of a problem though, isn't there, Jenny? I mean, you know, a lot of people would rather just pretend that it wasn't happening to them, wouldn't they? I mean, you know, taking that step of going to your GP, if you can get an appointment, is quite a big step, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know, there is part of it about accepting that maybe something is amiss. And I suppose part and parcel of why we're here today is to raise awareness and to hopefully encourage people to be open and honest with the likes of their GP, albeit, as you say, if they can get an appointment. But I suppose for us is to reinforce that support is there. Don't be afraid. We don't want people to be alone with this, but to be open and honest, speak to your GPs, and then hopefully a wee referral will be made on to our memory clinic. The memory clinic is a mix of nurses and social workers who will see people at the memory clinic. They're very professional, very thorough, very welcoming, very kind. They go through the process very gently because we understand that this can be quite confronting and quite challenging. You know, at the end of the day, we're human too, and we know what it is like on the other end. Unfortunately, like I said, 1 in 2 of us will experience a dementia of some description in our own lives. So we just want to work people through that process and support them as best we can.
I'm interested in the fact that it's called the Memory Clinic. Yep. It makes me think of Ted Danson's programme, The Man Inside, because I must say when I saw that and saw that was how they described it, it sounded so much less unpleasant than the way that we would previously have referred to it.
Hopefully Lisa can keep me right on this, and again, this is coming from my own memory that that was deliberately a deliberate decision, and I believe that was in partnership with people and their families, was not to use the word dementia. Again, we know that the word can be quite confronting, very frightening, very scary. So I think that was a consultation with family members.
Yes, it was quite a number of years ago. You know, following on from service user feedback, that people felt that the term dementia was frightening. It had this stigma attached to it. So when you come to the memory clinic, you know, you don't always, it's not you're not going to, you don't know if you're going to get a diagnosis of dementia. You could have other memory type symptoms. So the memory clinic was a better name for it at that stage.
Did it appeal to you, that change, Roisin?
Yes, because it is the memories. Like some people hide around the fact that it is dementia. Some family members will not even mention the word dementia to their relatives. My mum, because she had vascular for so long, she knew exactly what was happening to her. She knew she was going to be declining at some stage, and she knew she had dementia. So she would say to people, "I have dementia." But it's nice that it's the memory team, because it can be impacting anybody at any age.
And I suppose it looks at the positive side, if you like. You still maybe have some memory. It hasn't
Yes.
all gone, and that's maybe slightly encouraging.
Yeah, it's because you obviously keep your long-term memories a lot easier than your short-term memories, and that's what we find with Mummy. But it's, as she's got the Alzheimer's now, she has deteriorated now. She thinks she's the child, so she has memories of her childhood. Then it's coming out more. So it is.
Yeah, it's a bit of a change, isn't it? A big change, in fact.
It is a big change, because I'm her mum now. So it's hard for her to process that my children, she can get that my children are her grandchildren, but she can't get that I'm their mum. So she can't, and that she's my mum. So we have to try and adapt around that.
Yeah. Amy, how can you talked about the way that you're part of the team, if you like, helps people to live well and continue to have a meaningful life, and not just the person who's suffering from memory loss or dementia, but also those who are caring for them. Tell me how that works.
Well, when we go to meet people, it's about understanding where people have came from, understanding every factor about them, what they used to work at, their identities, their personality, what was the former interest that they have, that they're still a person, and actually promoting and encouraging that and trying to maintain their independence as much as possible. It might be like engaging with voluntary groups, other sources and resources within the community to support the person and also to support their carer. There's even like carers training groups and things like that, and completing a carers assessment. And sometimes when you are completing or offering a carers assessment, it's about taking that time. It's like a counselling role nearly. You're sitting down with the person as a carer and sitting with them and talking about their needs, their wishes for the future, what other factors and things they have going on in their lives. And sometimes they don't realise the impact of the caring role has on them. So it will be like sitting down and even talking about the future and future care planning and contingency plans that they have never thought about. They just think that, that I will continue to be able to do this, and haven't forethought of other plans. And it can be very emotional going through that with people and trying to figure out a plan and a way to move forward to support them, because if you're supporting the carer, you're supporting the person ultimately.
And what about the resource side of it, Jenny? Because that's what we keep hearing now, isn't it? That there aren't enough people in social care. There aren't enough people in social work. Certainly not as many wonderful people as we have here in the studio today. But being serious about it, it's not always possible, or is it, to come up with a kind of perfect care package?
Yeah, the reality is unfortunately we are having difficulties in trying to source those legs of packages of care and discharges from hospital. But I suppose as lead social worker, what I can attest to is the creativity of the social workers in our teams. They're like dogs with bones. They don't just, it's not a tick box exercise. We see the person for who they are. We know the family situation, the complexities with that. They will go above and beyond. There's no issue about that. They will have, I suppose, an idea of what's out in the community, the limitations to what we have, but our social workers are always pushing those boundaries and looking at additional resources out in the community. We're not stuck to statutory provisions only. We rely on our voluntary sectors. The community provisions, like your rural community provisions, is fantastic out there. But it's about those building rapport, getting your networking, and again about the social workers going above and beyond. But I am under no illusion that it is very, very difficult. and we are trying our very best, but it is hard, and it's about, as you've said there, promoting the right people into social work, into social care. So there is a bit of workforce planning there as well, to hopefully alleviate that. But unfortunately, that's the reality that we're in. Yep.
I mean, you obviously are very passionate about all of this, and are a kind of flag bearer, if you like, for social work in the area of dementia care. Yeah. What are the challenges for the people on your side, if you like, for those who are providing that social work?
And I think a testament today is us three here are in memory services over 10 years, so that validates, our true passion for working with people with dementia and their families. But I suppose, the difficulties are the limitations on the resources. Historically we were an over 65 service, but unfortunately we've had to kind of waiver that. Historically dementia may have been seen as an older person's illness, and that's no longer the case. We are working with individuals in their 50s. That brings a whole other dynamic. That is challenging as well for us. The emotional side of it is very difficult. We're working through grief and loss. We're trying to counsel, we're trying to get resources, but we have limitations. There's budget restraints, there's staff shortages. It is certainly very difficult, but we have a good team and a good cohort. So...
Yeah. No, and I would think, one of the, I suppose, personal problems, that you come in touch with day in and day out as a social worker is the ethical issues. Trying to balance the person's right with risk, and trying to do that for the person and for the family. And while it is okay to take risks, and we do promote that person's independence and risk taking, not every family will be the same, and not every family's view of risk is the same. So how do we do the best for that person under the law?
And I suppose, as social workers, us three are long-standing, to address those risks, that comes with experience. So like I say, we're 10 years in the service, so we maybe have past experiences or ideas that maybe newer staff might not be comfortable with. But there is a lack of experienced staff working in dementia services, and that is very tough.
Jenny talked about the fact that the lower age limit has now changed, and Lisa, I wonder, are there unique challenges then facing those who are dealing with early onset cases?
Well, there isn't the same support for the, I suppose we talk about under 65s and over 65s is the term we would use. And that's not a good term, because there shouldn't be an age barrier. Dementia is dementia, no matter what age you have it at. But there are unique challenges to somebody who's diagnosed in their 40s. I mean, obviously there's going to be different challenges. There's employment, there's work, there's relationships. There's even getting the diagnosis. What is this? Could this be really dementia at 45? So the journey could possibly be longer for them, because they go through numerous tests and numerous examinations, because people don't believe it could be dementia at that age. But those people then are the people who need support. And I don't know if we have the niche service for those people who are under 65, and I think that's where we're failing people, because we don't have those specialist supports. Now, in saying that, we do have a navigator service in the memory team, and there's a Pacific social worker who's allocated to the under 65s. But that's only one person, and you're covering a whole Southern Trust. It's incredible, but the support and those people need can be quite different from somebody who's in their 70s or 80s. There's really, you're talking about family, you're talking about people with mortgages, people who are still in work.
Young carers.
They could be the main caregiver for this family. What happens when they have dementia? Their relationships change, their hopes, their dreams, their future plans, retirement, all of those dreams, all of those ideas that they have, what a future was going to be like, has now changed. It's very, very emotive. And it is a very challenging area, and one which I think we need more resources.
Well, Shane, for you, I mean, you and your family have been living with dementia now for 14 years, I think you said.
Yes.
And in that time, there have been all kinds of changes, and we've heard about the kind of changes that can take place. How's that affected you and your husband and your two daughters are 13 and 15 now?
Yes. Yeah. Well, there's been a huge difference. When Mummy was first diagnosed with the vascular, she was still able to look after my oldest, who's now 15. She looked after her for the first 3 years. And then we had relocated to Newry. And we moved Mummy down because I couldn't have her. I'm originally from Bangor, so I couldn't have her an hour away from me. So when we moved down there, then the social team said that my mum wasn't able to look after my oldest or my youngest, who was just only a few months old. So they had to be then put into childcare, which was a big dramatic change for my oldest because she'd only ever had Granny looking after her. And all of a sudden she's being put into this place of strangers and other children. And my mum felt a great loss in that because she felt as though she wasn't trusted anymore with her or with my youngest. And that was physically and mentally hard for my mum because, yes, she knew she was vascular dementia. My mum had been a legal secretary for 30 years, so she'd already got her power of attorney in place. She was able to make sure her bank accounts had access. I work in benefits, so I knew about her being our appointee. So we had already all that future planning sorted out in the legal end of things. But then she was told you no longer can look after your grandchildren, and that was a massive, massive blow for her. Once they went to primary school, then we used to have her on what was called the school runs with taxis. My mum could never drive because she was originally from Belfast, and you didn't need to learn how to drive at her generation. You got on the bus, you walked into town, you got a black taxi, so she didn't need to learn how to drive. And so she used to do the school run by taxis, or else they would have got the bus home, and that was a big excitement. Granny was collecting her from school, and they used to go to Tesco's, and then they got to the cafe, and then they got the bus home. It was like a day's outing, cost a fortune, but they had all that time with Granny. And then she deteriorated in 2019, had a fall that literally she had hit her head as well with it, and that had put her off her mobility. And then from there was when we saw the actual decline from Mummy, and then once COVID hit, that was it.
And there's the intergenerational impact that dementia has. You know, it's not just on the person themselves, it's family and grandchildren, and
yes,
you know, it's not solely aligned just to that individual.
Because my oldest, she's an avid bookworm like my mum used to be, and she would go down to my mum's room when she lives with us and sat, and Granny knew when Rebecca came down with her book, don't speak to her. And then she would come home from school and tell her all the biz and sit for hours with my mum. Whereas now my mum actually can get my two girls mixed up, and it's only when they put their school blazers on, even on a Sunday, that she realises which child she has took with her, because they do go to different schools, and then she can realise, oh, that's this one, right, okay. But you know, even saying about their hobbies changing, like my mum can't even read a magazine anymore. And she was the first place we ever went to, if we went to Tesco's, first place was always to the book section, see what new books was in. You know, whereas now she can't even read a magazine.
What about the sort of misconceptions that people have about, well, both about people who have dementia, but also maybe about the families in which they're living? What do people misunderstand? I mean, what are the things that annoy you about the attitudes that other people might have?
Well, if I was to go to the hospital or anything with my mum, they presume my mum has dementia, especially she has now mixed dementia. So they see the Alzheimer's part and they go, oh, right, she's not going to be able to answer any questions. Whereas my mum still knows her date of birth, still knows her name, still knows her national insurance number. She'll know those facts because they're ingrained in her for so many decades. And you find an awful lot of healthcare professionals will actually talk to the family member and not the actual person, the patient. So that's why we've never filed by power of attorney in the courts, because to me that's taken that final, you know, independence away from my mum. So when we go to the hospital or anything, they'll say, oh, what's your date of birth? And I'll sit there in silence and I'll go to Mummy, what's your date of birth? And she'll give it to her. And then they realise, oh, this woman actually, yes, she's got dementia, but she still can't answer questions. And this is the thing, that everywhere you go, they just speak to you, but you're only really there as their backup, because, yes, you won't remember medical history or certain facts, just get them muddled. So I'm there really as the sounding board for her mobility to get her into the place, and also just to answer the questions she no longer can answer. And that is a big misconception that the person has completely gone. They haven't. They're still there. It's a shell, though, so it is.
It's like that programme that used to be on the radio, Does Your Friend Take Sugar? Which was precisely about that. You know, it's about Roger White, who's blind, and the person with him was always the one that was addressed, you know. One of you, I think, was trying to say something there. But
it probably would fold all three of us. You know, there was a promotional campaign years ago called I'm Still Me, do you know, where you still see the person for who they are. And again, I can attest to the social workers in the service that that's part of our ethos and part of our values is to ensure that the voice of the person is heard. Again, going back to the creativity of the girls, you know, if someone has verbal difficulties in engaging the conversation, there are other ways and means in which we can engage them in the process. I suppose, Amy, you might be able to...
Yeah, it's about even that slow, simple, clear language and trying to get the person to communicate, get them involved. I've used picture cards previously even to help people engage in the decision making and just trying to promote their involvement as much as possible. Because, as Jenny's right, it's keeping that at the forefront. I'm still me, I'm still there, regardless at what level, just trying to engage the person as much as is possible all the time.
And part of the social work role is to tune in to the person, to the individual, to the family. And I suppose, Lisa, you'd be the same in the clinic. You look for you know, who were they in the past, what did they work as, whether a teacher get pull something out so that you can speak to them on their level and adapt
your
approach.
Engage them with that. Like I've had nurses in the past and you engage them in a conversation with that, principals of schools, and just if you know a little bit about them, it helps the engagement, it helps open up the conversation with people, and it lets them know that they're still valued, you know, that you've taken the time to get to know something about them. And I think that's even like in the future, and what we would love to see is like more dementia friendly communities, because we do know that dementia is on the rise, you know, it's ever increasing with our demographics. So it's about having dementia friendly communities. And you know, we meet people in dementia in the bank, in Tesco's, doing our groceries, in libraries, and it's about creating that awareness in society that people with dementia, you know, have a place in society and their independence should be promoted and encouraged.
And that awareness, Lisa, I mean, is there a need really for there to be an awareness that there are things to be positive about as well?
Oh yes, I mean, there's certainly things to be positive about. You know, it's about promoting that person's independence. It's about early diagnosis and intervention, you know, and I think that's where, you know, at times that we could do better, but it's reducing that stigma for the person to come forward for that, and addressing those misconceptions about dementia. And I suppose it's flying the flag for people with dementia, and it's, you know, getting involved in the policies and procedures and getting involved in government initiatives and getting the word out there through this podcast, social media, any way we can.
And if you look at the whole issue, I mean, you're talking about the fact that 1 in 2 people will have either will find that they do have dementia or will find themselves in a situation with someone who has. Can you do anything about that? I mean, having a positive attitude is maybe one thing, but, you know, healthy lifestyle?
I suppose, well, in general, probably all of us in some capacity can be healthier and be more active and proactive. You know, the long-standing, the likes of doing your magazines, your Sudoku, your engaging in kind of cognitively functioning or sparking activities is important. But I suppose
it's looking after your own physical health as well, so because that impacts on your chances of dementia, like your vascular health, your heart health, you know, keeping weight, your weight healthy, and doing all those things to manage your own health too.
Infections can be a bit of a stickler and can increase someone's kind of cognitive impairment. So making sure they have open links to your GP as well, you know, keeping an eye on your general health. But I suppose advanced care planning, just to jump back, would be an important part of our role for people as well, to ensure that you hear the wishes and feelings of someone in the future of what they want. An early diagnosis then would be linked to that as well.
A diagnosis, do you know, isn't the end. A diagnosis is a beginning of a different chapter in your life, and it's how you approach that. And, you know, we need to be more positive about that. Just because you have a dementia diagnosis, you know, we need to get rid of the stigma. You maintain your independence, you maintain your interests, your hobbies, your relationships. Why can you not? There's no reason why you cannot. Yes, later down the line, as the condition progresses, you mightn't have the same level of engagement, but you adapt to that, you change to that. And this is where we come in as a memory service, to support you through that, to counsel you through that, to counsel your families through that, and to let you know what's out there in the community, what's around, and who's there to support you.
I'm interested to know, how did the three of you end up in this specialist area of social work practice?
This
is Jenny.
Hello. I'll try and keep this short. From I've graduated, I've always had an interest in adult mental health. I suppose I started off my career in Praxis, which is a voluntary organisation for adults with chronic mental illness. And I got a job, applied for a job in memory services. I've just always enjoyed working in adult mental health. I was a community social worker like Amy for about 6 years, and then got the lead social work post for memory services in psychiatric old age. I really am so passionate about it, about working with people and their families out there, especially in and around your own area. Some people mightn't agree with that, but I actually enjoy it.
Is that important to you, Amy, the fact that it's kind of in and around your own area? You feel you're making a difference?
Oh yeah, I do, and I feel like it's a very rewarding job. Even when I would have been at school and younger, my mummy would have always said that I would have always gravitated towards older people. There would have been like a load of children, and I would have always gravitated towards older people. Even like grandparents just always had a real interest in older people, in the life stories, in the wisdom, in their sayings. I think they bring so much value to the community and to people. So even when I done my application for social work, like any of my friends were putting down family and childcare and different things, and I was always older people, always really wanted to work with older people. So I did work in family and childcare for a while, and then when a temporary post came up in memory, I jumped on it. I was like, that is where I want to work, and I really love it. I think you can see the difference that you make. You get to work with carers, and I do feel like you get to make a difference. It is difficult and it's emotional, but you get to go on that journey with someone, and be that point of contact for somebody, and it's a nice area of practice.
I do find that working in your own area, you end up being known for working in memory services. So I could be at the shop with my children, and you'll have someone coming across to you. Do you mind if I ask a wee question? Or my mummy or my granny or whatever it is, that you are like constantly promoting the service without actually realising it, which is why I like working in my own area. I'm
going to come to Lisa in a second, but I'm just conscious that Amy and Roisin, when you work quite closely together, obviously Amy's your community social worker, and when you hear what she says about her passion for it, does that shine through to you?
Absolutely. Amy is saying about, their hobbies and their interests. So Amy discovered that my mum is a singer. She's professionally trained since she was 6. So my mum actually sings when she's out at Barden College. They always have her doing solos and everything, and she would have a joke, I had to sing for my supper again today. But it's that memory that she remembers all her songs, hymns like Oh Holy Night at Christmas, that's her specialty. She sang at my wedding. Amy was able to, grab onto that and let Barden know that is, one of my mum's passions and joys. Also gardening, so they're able to do gardening with her as well. But Amy will come to me, on our assessment, and she'll have a chat with me, but then she'll go down to my mum and have a chat. And Amy knows what the proper facts are, but she lets mummy tell her rubbish. And she's very much, right, okay, that's great to know. She's very conscious. She lets mummy just be what, who she is. She doesn't judge mummy. She engages in her. And she's then able to see what else she can do in place to help us as a family. And one of the major things has been that she's been able to get mummy into Barden 5 days a week for us. Because my husband works from home full time, and I work in our office 2 days a week, so 3 days at home. So it's been massive relief to us and taking a lift off our shoulders.
I'm sure.
For me, that's actually a beautiful example of person-centred planning there from Amy. It's reflective of the social model. It's, the holistic stance that we take on it. It's just lovely actually to hear that, and I've no doubt about it, Amy, but it's lovely to hear the reality of it, that it's actually happening.
Lisa, we didn't hear how you ended up in this specialist area.
many, many years ago. The girls are 10 years possibly in the service. I'm over 20. So look, if I'm not, I'm still in it after 20 years. So I think that speaks volumes. I fell into it. I think if you believe in it, fate. It was when I was doing my first student placement. It was in the, as it was known then, the dementia team in Portadown, and I've never looked back. I qualified, a job come up shortly after I qualified. I went for it, I got it, and I've never left.
Well, that's pretty good, really, isn't it? You know, and what did they say? If you enjoy your job, every day's a holiday. I'm sure it's not, mind you. But just to, maybe to kind of coming towards the end of the podcast, you've all talked a bit about areas where you think maybe things might improve or whatever. I mean, what are your hopes for the future? Amy, let me ask you first.
I think probably more training and resources for the people that work in dementia care. I think I'd mentioned before, like a lot of people that we have with dementia have behaviours associated with their dementia. Like you might have somebody with agitation, aggression, hallucinations, and they can be all difficult behaviours to manage. So I think the training aspect could be an area that really should be improved, and that's for like social care, day care, family, everybody that comes in contact, because that can be something that can cause the care stress and the support breakdown, because people don't know how to manage those behaviours effectively. And those behaviours, there can be a range of reasons for those behaviours, but it's given people though that training to be able to support them and managing them. I think that's one of the biggest things.
Would that be helpful to you, Roisin, do you think, looking towards the future?
For us carers being trained more. Yes, it's. I think the hardest part with dementia is you don't know what's actually going to be next. What's the next stage? How are they at the start, the middle, or at the end of their dementia journey? You know, it's nobody can tell how long it's going to last. Yes, my mum has a diagnosis for 14 years, which is quite long. But like she's only 78. And in a sense, we know that dementia is not going to be what kills her. You know, it's going to be her physical health. Whereas dementia is just part of our memory, you know, our mental health. But it's for us carers not knowing, it's the unknown. And that's the hardest part. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So you don't. Like I was lucky in the sense that I went back studying to learn more about the brain. So yes, I can understand how mummy, you know, where mummy took with the vascular. It was because of a stroke. It was a silent stroke. We didn't even know she had had it. It was only when they did the CT scan to see whether she had, what type of dementia she had, that we discovered she'd had a stroke. And yeah, I think carers just sort of need maybe one-to-one or even group, a chat, you know, somewhere they can go and talk about their experiences. But the only big problem is most services and health advice are actually during working hours. And there's so many of us who are carers who work full time. And there's no provision really then for the evenings or weekends. And that's where the hardest part is, because everything is during the day while we're working.
Well, maybe someone will be listening and might be able to do something about that. Lisa, what about you? What are your hopes for the future?
I'm really keen to see more resources in terms of addressing the younger people, the young onset dementia. I do feel that's an area that needs a lot of investment and I suppose resources into it. Early diagnosis is key for intervention and forward planning and future care planning.
Jenny?
I think for me it's dementia-friendly communities, just raising awareness, looking at the stigma, trying to alleviate any feelings of fright or being scared. Again, dovetailing on what Lisa has said there, just early diagnosis is crucial. So if we are able to get an increase in that, would be great to allow for advanced care planning, to ensure that their thoughts and wishes are heard, so that we can walk through the journey with them, ensuring that we've heard and adhere to what their wishes were.
Well, look, Jenny, Amy, Lisa and Roisin particularly perhaps, Thank you all so much for being here for this episode of Care to Chat. Dementia Action Week runs from May the 19th to the 25th, and our podcast is released to coincide with that. So hopefully you'll find our conversation useful and will be able to access further information through events taking place. Now, there'll be more podcasts released throughout the coming weeks, so to be sure you don't miss one, please do subscribe. They are free, by the way. Wherever you get your podcasts, please rate us and, of course, tell all your friends and colleagues.